The world looks at her and assumes something went wrong. They see her alone and call it loneliness. They see the silence around her life and label it failure. But heaven never agreed with that interpretation. Heaven says she's not alone. She's chosen. She didn't start this way. She once belonged. She once showed up, reached out, stayed loyal longer than she should have. She gave her time, her heart, her strength to people who promised they would stay. And then, one by one, they disappeared. Not gently, not honestly. They left through betrayal, silence, distance, and indifference. That kind of loss doesn't just hurt the heart. It fractures identity. It makes a woman question whether she is too much or never enough. It teaches her to replay conversations at night, wondering where she failed, where she misstepped, why she was always the one left standing alone. But the pain didn't mean she was defective. The pain meant something was being revealed. God was not punishing her. He was pruning her. And pruning always looks like loss before it looks like fruit. The world doesn't understand pruning. The world only understands accumulation. More friends, more invitations, more validation, more noise. But God works in reverse. He removes before he multiplies. He separates before he sends. He empties before he fills. She felt abandoned, but she was being protected. She felt rejected, but she was being redirected. People didn't leave because she lacked value. They left because they lacked alignment. And God will never allow misaligned people to walk with you into a calling they would sabotage from the inside. She cried in the secret place, thinking she was losing everything. But heaven was quietly burning away what was fake, what couldn't survive pressure, what only loved her when she was convenient, compliant, easy to access. The betrayal didn't destroy her. It purified her. She walks alone now, not because she's bitter, but because she's awake. She trusts slower. She listens deeper. She no longer confuses proximity with loyalty or noise with love. She learned that presence without honor is still absence. Number 1. She has been betrayed, and God used it as purification. The wound exposed who was real and who was feeding off her oil. The cut removed relationships that would have poisoned the anointing. She didn't lose people who were meant to stay. She was spared from carrying dead weight into her next season. Number 2. She is hard to manipulate, and that makes her dangerous. She no longer bends to pressure just to belong. She doesn't laugh at gossip to stay included. She doesn't shrink to make insecure people comfortable. And when manipulation stopped working, the manipulators stopped pretending to care. She didn't become cold. She became clear. She stopped being impressed by charm and started paying attention to character. She stopped answering calls that only came with hidden agendas. Discernment sharpened her spine, and suddenly she was too solid to control. That kind of woman threatens darkness. Because when you can't be guilted, flattered, or rushed out of alignment, the enemy loses access. She isn't loud. She isn't arrogant. She's grounded. And grounded women are immovable. Number 3. She was set apart for a holy purpose. Some women don't get to blend in. When God places weight on a life, he removes the crowd. When he assigns destiny, he demands distance. Familiarity would dilute what he's doing in her. Isolation wasn't accidental. It was intentional. Heaven pulled her out of common spaces to prepare her for uncommon work. She wasn't overlooked. She was hidden. Protected from voices that would question the vision. Protected from relationships that would delay obedience. God doesn't do crowds when he's forming covenants. He doesn't shout over noise. He whispers in the secret place. And she learned to choose that place, even when it cost her connection. Popularity was never the goal. Purity was. Number 4. She learned to hear God clearly through silence. The quiet that others fear became sacred ground for her. No constant notifications. No endless opinions. No emotional clutter. Just space. And in that space, the whisper grew louder. While others needed 10 voices to make one decision, she learned to move on one instruction from heaven. Her ears became trained. Her spirit became sensitive. She didn't just feel things. She discerned them. She didn't react. She responded in alignment. That intimacy didn't come easily. It was forged through lonely nights when God was the only one who stayed. But those nights were not empty. They were instructional. Silence taught her obedience. Stillness taught her authority. Number 5. She has been misjudged, but she remains marked. They called her distant because they couldn't access her. They called her proud because she stopped explaining herself. They called her cold because she stopped bleeding in public. Being misunderstood didn't mean she was wrong. It meant she was rare. The moment she drew boundaries, she became the villain in stories told by people who benefited from her lack of them. But their opinions never canceled her calling. God doesn't need public approval to validate a private assignment. Fruit speaks louder than reputation. And the same people who mislabel her now will one day wonder how she became so strong without their support. She didn't harden. She healed. She didn't close her heart. She consecrated it. She stopped being available for misuse and became available for purpose. And that shift made her life quieter, but her spirit louder. She is not unloved. She is untouched by what would have broken her. She is not empty. She is being filled with oil that costs isolation, obedience, and faith. And heaven recognizes that cost. She stands now, not needing to be seen to be secure, not needing a crowd to confirm her worth. She walks slowly, deliberately, anchored in something deeper than approval. And even if the path is narrow, it is covered. She is not walking away from people. She is walking toward God, and every step that feels lonely on earth is celebrated in heaven. She stopped begging to be understood the moment she realized she was already known by God. The need to explain herself fell away when intimacy replaced approval. When heaven affirms you, human confusion loses its power. Number 6. She is not looking for friends. She is looking for fruit. Her appetite changed when her spirit matured. She grew tired of conversations that went nowhere, relationships that drained her oil, connections that demanded access without offering covering. She no longer measures her life by who shows up. She measures it by what grows: love, peace, self-control, discernment, obedience. The fruit that only develops when roots go deep and distractions are cut off. She isn't antisocial. She's intentional. She isn't avoiding people. She's guarding purpose. There was a season where she poured endlessly into others and remained empty herself. That season ended the moment she chose alignment over attachment. Friends became fewer, but clarity multiplied. Invitations slowed, but direction sharpened. Her phone grew quiet, but her spirit came alive, because God never asked her to be popular. He asked her to be fruitful. Number 7. She is a threat to the enemy because she walks in power. Not loud power, not performative power, quiet power. The kind that comes from purity, discipline, and obedience when no one is watching. A woman who keeps praying when she feels forgotten terrifies darkness. A woman who worships without witnesses disrupts atmospheres. A woman who obeys without applause cannot be stopped, because her fire is not fueled by attention. It's fueled by intimacy. The enemy tried to isolate her to weaken her. Instead, isolation refined her. It taught her to stand without leaning, to believe without reinforcement, to trust without reassurance. And now she doesn't flinch when people leave, because her foundation was never built on them. She knows who she is. She knows who called her. She knows what she carries. And that awareness makes her dangerous, not to people, to darkness. She doesn't post about her strength. She doesn't announce her growth. But when she enters a room, things shift. Not because she demands attention, but because authority follows obedience. The enemy whispers that she's missing out. Heaven declares that she's being prepared. The enemy tells her she's behind. God says she's right on time. The enemy calls her isolated. God calls her set apart. She understands now that isolation was not abandonment. It was promotion. Silence was not emptiness. It was intimacy. Fewer friends were not loss. They were elevation. She stopped asking why people left and started thanking God for who didn't stay. Because not everyone who walks with you is meant to walk for you. And not everyone who starts the journey is assigned to finish it. She is no longer afraid of being alone, because she has discovered something deeper than companionship. She found communion, and communion sustains when connection fails. She doesn't chase relationships to feel whole. She is already anchored, already covered, already chosen. She doesn't rush seasons. She doesn't force doors. She trusts the hand that closed what distracted her and opened what refined her. The world may never understand her rhythm, her quiet, her boundaries, her depth, but heaven does. And heaven is the only audience that matters. She is not cold. She is consecrated. She is not distant. She is devoted. She is not hidden because she lacks value. She is hidden because what she carries is sacred. God removed people not to wound her, but to protect the oil on her life. Because oil leaks in the wrong environments. Because anointing cannot survive constant access. Because warfare requires preparation, not popularity. She was never meant to be defined by who stayed. She was meant to be refined by who left. And now she walks lighter, clearer, stronger. She doesn't need a crowd to confirm her identity. She doesn't need noise to feel alive. She doesn't need constant affirmation to keep going. She has already been affirmed in the secret place. She is not unloved. She is protected. She is not forgotten. She is being prepared. She is not walking alone. She is walking with God, and that changes everything. One day, the same people who misunderstood her silence will recognize her authority. One day, what looked like isolation will reveal itself as incubation. One day, her obedience will speak louder than every label placed on her. Until then, she keeps walking. Even when it's quiet. Even when it's misunderstood. Even when it costs her comfort. Because she knows now, she was never being punished. She was being positioned. She is chosen. She is marked. She is dangerous to darkness. And heaven is not finished with her yet.